Welcome to the NGEN Markets Training session. So while others are joining in, we will talk about the topic for today. So the topic for today is analyzing customized securities. So we will analyze. We will add in custom securities. We will show you some particular ways how to add this customized securities to analyze these non-standard asset classes, and then we will do some comparisons and we will look towards the analytics, and then we will talk about the Q&As. So any questions you have, we will try to address them up. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone and my voice is audible. If not, please let me know on the chat box and I will address it. So let's go ahead in our terminal. Just a moment. Okay. So as you can see, this is the NGEN Markets terminal. And if you want to load any custom security, let's say it might be a foreign stock or maybe a PMS or an AIF, all you need to have is a custom, a price series number. So once you have that particular price series data sets, what you can do is you can actually add them into the system. And I will show you the process to add them into the system. Meanwhile, I'm just going to ask again, if I am audible to everyone, you can just write it on the chat box if it is clear to everyone. So let's go ahead. Here to add any custom security, right? There's a list, there's this last tab, which is called as My Security. And this is where you can actually, add any custom security. So let's click on this and you will see certain, securities being updated. So this is what we have already updated. But if you have not done it, you will not see anything here in the system. Now, if you want to add any custom securities, all you have to do is click on this plus button, right? So once you click on this plus button, right, you will see something like this will occur. Now, how do you add a custom security here in the system? So yes, you need to have a custom price series to add in. So let me just show you the custom price series of a particular stock. So let's say we have, the price series of these sets of stocks, right? Now, these are all foreign stocks. We have the data set. So we are adding them into the system. So I will show you, two examples here. We will add either of, couple of stocks, and we will show you how do you analyze them while adding the custom securities. So let's say, we are taking into consideration as Alphabet, Google, right? Now, to add this Google stock into the system, all you have to do is copy this into the system and paste it. So once you pasted it, then you can, add it into the system directly here. So just a moment, and you just have to add here. So as you can see, this is the dialog box which occurs, and you can actually paste it. You name the custom security just like this. Here, you click on the, equity, and you validate the input. So once you validate the input, that is how, the entire data set occurs. Yes, so the date format should be like this. We have already given the data format here in this system. So this should be like this, but it also considers this particular set of format, right? So this particular set of format which I've shown you, this can also be considered. So that is how it captures any particular data format. So, you should consider having the data format given in the system, but this format which I've shown you in the Excel, right? This is the one format. This is also being considered with our system directly. So, as you can see, if I have added Google into the system, all I have to do is validate the input. Once the input is validated, you will see the price series here. And this is the exact price series which I've added. And I'm considering for a particular stock as a adjusted close. So what I do is I click on save, and it gets saved into the system. Now, where do you see this price series? When you see this into the equities, you will see, Google being added into the system. So somewhere here in the, system, if I search Google, just like this, it gets added. So you will see the Google being added. So that is how this works out for any particular price series. Now here, if I want to, add in multiple sets of stocks, right? So, how do I do that? So all you have to do is just add in the price series, and you can save it in one particular list. So I will add it again. I will show you the same process again. Let's say we are adding MasterCard, or let's say Microsoft. So to add Microsoft, I'm just going to hide this three, just a moment, and I'm going to copy this, and paste it into my system. So this entire, price series of Microsoft with the date format, you can easily add them into the system, and that can be, easily be, done with an analytics. So here, if I go ahead and if I do the, copy paste again, you can see this is the, data set I've added. And one thing you should be ensuring is that the, current price should be in the last column, whereas the previous price should be in the, first column. So sometimes what happens, you might get a data set where it will happen that your current price is in the first, first particular domain. So it's like in a descending order. So that is what we do not want. So that is why, this should be ensured altogether. And once you validate the input here, so here you can, write the name. So MSFT, or maybe let me just type it Microsoft, right? So once I type it Microsoft, I click on equity, I validate the input. I can see this is the price series I've added, and I can save it. Once it is added, beside this, one of the, particular price series as a custom security will be updated into the system. So that is how you can update any particular custom security into the system. Now I will show you that, how do you update, once you have updated the custom security, you can see how do you see the analytics of it. So now let's say we need to analyze a stock, right? Microsoft stocks. So how do we do that, right? All you have to do is just click on it. Once you have clicked on it, this is how the custom security analysis will be, visible to you. And now you can even change the benchmark. So here we have given certain functionalities, whereas you can even download these prices which you have actually inputted into the system. You can save it as a favorite if you want, which actually, acts as a favorite section here. And another thing is to, change the benchmark. So changing the benchmark, let's say I'm considering S&P 500, I can easily do that. So now this is how I have added S&P 500 as a rebase price, and this is the Microsoft price. And altogether, what you can do is you can actually do the performance analytics in front of the benchmark. So here you can see the asset, which is the Microsoft stock. You can see the, annual return, annual volatility. So all the analytics, just like a mutual fund analytics or a portfolio analytics, which you are aware of, that can be done even on a custom security basis. You can even see the Sharps ratio against the benchmark, the Sortino against the benchmark, and the historical value at risk, which shows you the risk based on the confidence interval. So this basically shows you that there is a 5% chance to have a certain loss like negative 38.82 for this particular stock, whereas the benchmark has a 5% chance of having a loss of negative 26.95. Now, this is one of the another function which has been, recently updated from our system, as we, before we had only the asset returns. Now we have also added the benchmark beside it to actually compare between the asset and the benchmark. So as it gives you a proper comparison between every parameters which we have given here as a performance stats. So you can even change the confidence interval from 95 to 99 to see what is the worst probability. So worst probability in the sense, what is the worst case scenario where you would have a, certain set of a loss. So 1% chance you can have a negative 66 as a loss. That is truly volatile. So that is how you can actually, do a proper performance stats analysis in the system just by clicking on the button. So I can even do that for any other, any other custom security. So let's say Robinhood, right? Robinhood is another, another stock. You click on it, the custom security gets loaded. You can MTTR or, the Meta, Facebook. Yes, you can do that into the system directly from here. And here you can change the benchmark. So changing the benchmark is pretty easier. All you have to do is click on the NASDAQ and you will see the benchmark here. So as efficiently you can see the excess return over the benchmark against NASDAQ, annual return over benchmark, tracking error, info ratio. So these are all relative stats which helps you to understand the relationship between the benchmark. Are we better than the benchmark? Are we creating an alpha or not, like 2.26, right? And then we have the capture ratios. So the capture ratio shows you that on a monthly, on a monthly domain, are we beating the benchmark or not on a month-to-month basis? So, all you have to do is just dissect this capture ratio just by clicking on this I button. You click on this I button and you can see these are the monthly returns of our asset when the benchmark was up, You can see how our asset has performed, which is currently Facebook in front of the Nasdaq, and this is the benchmark. So the return set in the up markets was lower than the benchmark, and you can easily see that for every single month. And even for the down capture, you can see that for the same, that whenever there was a fall in the benchmark, we had a lesser fall. So efficiently you can see for the down capture as well. And one important thing to be noted, that in up months you will definitely see some of the months to be not available, because that only considers the up months. So after September, there is November, there is no October in 2012. So the October will be in down months. So that is what you should be aware of when you are taking a look towards this. So this is one thing which you can analyze any custom security, just like mutual funds or a stock. Whenever you're analyzing a mutual fund, you can search the fund from here or a stock from here. That is how you can even do that for a particular level, custom security, maybe a foreign stock, maybe a PMS or an AIF. Only thing which is required is to have a price series number, right? And here we have given the monthly stats, which shows you that on a monthly domain, what were the frequency of number of months which were positive, which is 75, and what were the frequency of months which is negative, which is 47. So that is how you can take a look towards monthly stats and the yearly stats as well. So that's how you're analyzing the custom securities in one particular data set. And this is, all you have to do is just add in and just click on it. So there are lots of custom securities we have added, and you can easily do, certain sets of analysis in one particular, system here as well, right? There are a couple of 2 to 3 things which you should be aware of, is that whatever you could do for a portfolio analytics, you can even do for a custom securities, just like rolling analysis distribution. So rolling analysis, if we head to the tab, it actually shows that if you take a decision for a meta stock, right, till the current date or a current scenario for just a 260 days, right, every single day shows you the sum of the previous 260 days daily return. Now when we average this all data point, you would get an absolute average of 32.33. So on an absolute sense, you would have an average of 32.33% of the returns on this asset, with the volatility of 29.65%, which is truly high as a volatility taken into consideration. And then you can take a look towards what was the highest high that is achieved through a particular set of asset, and what was the lowest low, which is negative 64.67. And then we have given the distribution as well, which helps you to understand that if you are taking a look towards all these data sets, where this data sets is underlying in the a matter of frequency. So let's say we are taking into consideration as 0% till 50%, right? So how many percent of the entire asset comes between this return set 0 to 50, which is 71%. So that is highly likely for a 1 year period that you could have such a return between 0 to 50%. And then we have rolling volatility as well, which is another parameter which helps you to understand the volatility. And as you all know, we are actually analyzing a different data set, which is altogether from a different market, and not in an Indian market. You will definitely see a different rolling volatility against our Indian market assets. And that is how you can actually analyze it. And you can see that the volatility is increasing and decreasing highly in this particular domain. So here in 2020, before even 2020, there was a high increase in volatility for 2019 as well. So for a particular stock which we are taking into consideration, which is FB, Facebook, this is how the volatility has been. It has been truly volatile. And how high the volatility has reached is 57.36. How low is 16.60. And this is just for a 1 year volatility, 260 days rolling wall. Every single point you see is a 260 days volatility altogether. So that is how you can take a look towards. And then you can also take a look towards 520 and 780, right? And these are all programmable in the sense, if you want to check for a 3 year or for a 5 year period, right, all you have to do is just type in 1300, right? So every single analytics we used to do for any particular mutual fund or even a portfolio, you could do that for a customized security as well. And then you can also take a look towards drawdowns. Drawdowns is one of the very useful ways to understand the risk and the strength. So, if there is a risk, if there is a loss, how much, how much days it took to recover and how much it is recovering currently as of now, right? So you can currently see that, this is still recovering. It is 6% recovered, and it shows you, how much recovery is ongoing. And that shows you based on the price series. So you can easily see that there were, lots of drawdowns here. So all the gray areas which you see here, every single gray area shows you the losses. Any particular loss you see are the gray areas. So all the top 10 losses are given in the chart, and you can easily see that there is a huge, drawdown here in the system, right? If you just zoom in here, just by clicking this, you will see the drawdown and the recovery just started. So, if you have a current data set, you could easily analyze such a stock in such a way that you would understand the drawdowns and the recovery period of that particular stock as well. So this depends upon what kind of asset you're adding into the system, and that can help you to easily analyze that. And not just a custom security. A custom security can be anything which has a price series. So let's say we are considering a gold or a silver as a commodity, that you can also add. So let's say I'm adding gold. So gold is already been added into our system. You can see this is how the commodity behaves. Now you can easily check the drawdowns of a commodity, and that's how this works out. The losses which was occurred in that the gold, where actually took 1200 days to recover. Now this is a good way to actually take a look towards some different sets of asset classes, non-standard asset classes, and considering their strength based to how they are recovering. So there are two sets of recovery that is still ongoing on. You can see that 2020 recovery, 2020 to 2021, there was another drawdown. I think this one, which you can see here. And then there was another drawdown again. So let me just zoom in here. If you can see here. So here we had a drawdown and then the recovery, but it still did not recover. And then had a drawdown again and then the recovery. So there are two sets of recovery that is still recovering. And if you add in a current data set of the of this particular asset gold, you would understand that how much it has recovered. So now this is an old data set, but even in the old data set, you could analyze and get very insightful information just by adding the custom security. Now, what is the use of this entire custom security and how do you use it? The main purpose of this is that if you have certain non-standard asset classes and their price series, you can easily add them into the system here. And then this entire list becomes your own repository, own data set, where you can analyze it and add it into the portfolios, or you can even compare it with mutual fund stocks, or even Indian mutual funds, Indian stocks, right, directly from the compare section. So first I will tell you the first use case, that is the portfolio use case. The portfolio use case comes as this, that if you click on this portfolio section, right, and if you click on this add a new portfolio, right, and let's say we consider some ISINs, we have added some funds, some mutual funds all together into the system, right? And now we are considering that we want to analyze on a level that we are adding a foreign security. Let's say we have added Microsoft, right? A current stock we have added. So we are considering this, and we give in allocation of 20%, let's say 18%. Yeah. So this is an allocation. We rescale this to 100, and rescaling just basically means that if I've added, let's say, maybe let's say 8%, right? And you can see that, the allocation is 93.01 and I want to allocate it to 100%, just want to rescale this entire thing up. All I have to do is just click on rescale to 100. So it easily helps me to rescale the entire allocations to 100 without even, changing the allocation. So all it does is it gives it a minimal micro level allocation to every single asset. I can name this as a, any modified portfolio, right? With custom security, I can create it or I can just run it. Once I run it, you will definitely see Microsoft being added into the system. Right now, what is the use case of this, right? You would definitely want Microsoft as being added into the system as a direct holding, which is a direct holding as altogether with 9.60 exposure in my portfolio. So what is the importance of this? I would definitely see two things. One is the correlation, which will help me to understand that if I am holding a Microsoft as an asset, am I correlating highly or lowly with the other assets I hold in my system? This is very helpful for diversification. So we definitely invest in, some of the ETFs, or maybe some, some of the foreign stocks. Then I would definitely want to know if the correlation is there in the place or not. A low correlation is, closer towards zero, which is, you can definitely see this is closer towards zero. A high correlation is actually, closer towards one, just like this, 0.93, 0.95, or 0.97, right? So what depends here is that how diversified is my portfolio on the basis of the start date I've taken into consideration. So you can easily add Microsoft and other stocks. So I'm just gonna add some other stocks like, let's say, Google here, right? And I just run this, rescaling it. And once I run this, I can check the correlation. Now the data set is old, but you will get a gist of it, that if you add in a custom security, you can definitely see there is a, high correlation between Microsoft and Google. And that is actually, logical, because they are, into the similar ecosystem of IT companies in USA. So you will have a higher correlation between them, right? So that is how this works out. You can actually add in, more custom securities to actually compare the correlation itself in this individual security level. And coming towards the contribution, that is another use case where you click on contribution, whereas you can see if the securities are allocated, let's say, if you consider Microsoft, which is allocated 8%, how much it has contributed towards the portfolio based on the allocations it has, taken into consideration. So you can see it is in the second, which has contributed 19.69% towards the portfolio out of 100%. So out of 100% of the returns, what the portfolio has given, so this is the return. You can check the performance here. The contribution of the Microsoft is actually 19.69%. So it's a highly contributing asset into your portfolio, which can actually be a volatile asset, but the main part is to check the contribution altogether. So this is another use case you could actually do by adding custom securities in any particular portfolio, right? So this is one very useful use case you could do to add custom securities. And let's say you want to, compare custom securities on an individual level. All you have to do is just click on this compare. So there are two ways to add the custom securities into the system, but these are all interconnected. If I click on this, it adds all the securities into the compare section altogether. So, basically, let me just, add this up. Just a second. Okay. So basically, if I click on this compare and add the custom security, let's say Google, I'm easily adding Google here. Apple, I'm adding Apple here. Just a second, Apple stock. So I can add any custom security just by, just by clicking on this list. And you can even add that into the system just by, taking into consideration of this Microsoft stock, right? So these are all added into the system, and that's it. Now, if I want to analyze these two particular securities, I can easily do that. Let's say we are taking into consideration some commodities as well. So like gold, right? So gold is another one which we are taking into consideration. And then we are taking silver as well. And, you can even take in crude oil. So any particular, data set which is required, right, that can be added into the system. And these all data sets are all coming from this my securities. So if you see this in the others, I've added a couple of custom security like crude oil, silver, gold. Everything was added by me into the system just by taking this approach. And we have also given an example file for you to take a reference upon. If you face any difficulties, you can just click on this example file as to what kind of date and the price series is required, right? Once you add them into the compare section, now whatever you used to do for mutual fund or even a stock into the compare section, you could even do it for the custom securities. So I'm just gonna give you the brief of it. One brief here is that every single column which you see, the return column, the relative column, that can easily be accessed. Now I can easily access the relative column and just, take into consideration, let's say a foreign, index, let's say Dow and Jones or S&P 500, and compare these two stocks which I've added, Microsoft and, Apple, and see if they have beaten the, foreign index or not, right? So this you can do easily from the system. All you have to do is just, calculate the relative column from the system and have a start date. So that is how you can, easily see the CAGR, the standard deviation, and even you can have a particular start date for your assets. To have a particular start date, all you have to do is just click a start date, right? Now, let's say I'm considering that let's say I'm considering a hypothetical scenario that from 2016, I start my investment, and this is my start date. I click go, and from that, you would see the CAGR, the standard deviation, and the sharps. And you can see that, all the commodities are having a negative sharp, whereas, most of the equities, foreign equities, are having positive sharps. So that is how, this works out, and you can easily do that for any particular uh, you know assets which you add into the system. And there are a couple of more things which you could do. One is a basic, you can, on a basic level, if you want to just see the risk and return, you can see the risk and return, altogether into the system, or the, the correlations. Now the correlation of gold and silver definitely will be high, right? Because they are coming into the precious metal domain, right? And you can check the performance chart just by checking on this. You can have your own start date and end date. You can check the point to point analysis as well. Let's say you're taking into consideration for one scenario like 2008. If you have a data set, from there, that point of the time, you would definitely know what has happened to these three commodities and these two, stocks in the crisis scenario. It gives you a very insightful information altogether. All you have to do is check the date for 2008. You click on this. Let's say I'm taking into consideration 2010. Maybe let's go back a little, right? 2009. I click on this. I can see the data sets here. So now these data sets are not visible because I have not taken, the data sets. What I've added is a bit of an outdated data sets, not a current ones. So if you add in the current ones till the, from the start of 2005 or 2001, then you will definitely see some, insightful information here. So if I consider, let's say 2012 here and 2011 here, you can easily see some, parameters. So yes, you can see here that there are some negative performance, and you can actually analyze it. So analyzing it, you will see all the data sets here. So it's a pretty much good way to actually compare any custom security. And one more thing, that a custom security can even be a portfolio. So let's say, right, you're considering a portfolio, because as you all know, NGEN gives you ability to add custom security. Now we have also given an ability to download price series for any particular asset from the system, whatever we have given as a data sets. Let's say for a fund, let's say Axis, let's say we're considering Axis, mid cap fund, right? So now if we want to, add it as a custom security, you can easily do that. All you have to do is just download this price series, which downloads the NGEN price series altogether. NGEN's suitable price series, which actually takes into the system, and you can add them into the system. So this is how the price looks like. These are all the returns which we have calculated already. You can copy these price series and you can easily add them into the system if you want, right? So this is another use case you could do. You can copy and paste, and you can see the same price series what was shown by the Axis Midcap is shown here as well. Save it, and you can, use it as per needed. But the most important use case would be the portfolios, because if you want to, compare strategies, any of the strategies in the system, right? You could easily do that. Let's say this is hybrid 60-40 strategy, right? So now this is a hybrid 60-40 strategy. I would want to, this is the performance of my strategy, right? I'm just going to give you an example here. This is an equity strategy I have. This is a debt strategy I have. 40% is in debt, 60% is in equity. Now I want to compare my hybrid strategy into the system. How do I do that? How do I compare my strategies with this, prospective client or any other, portfolios altogether? All I have to do is download this price series into the system. You download the price series, you would get a suitable data sets, and all you have to do is just copy this data set. You copy this and you paste it into the system just by adding it here. So I'm just going to remove this. I will validate this, and you will see this is the price series of my hybrid strategy. I can say hybrid, 60-40. Now this is 60%, equity, 40% debt. And that's how my strategy is, right? and I can just keep it as others, a hybrid strategy, validate it, save it, and it gets saved into my system. Now, in the compare section, when I head into the compare section, once it gets saved, you can easily run multiple strategies in the system. To run multiple strategies, all you have to do is just go into the compare, and this is the same tab, add other items, which is a very useful tab, whereas you can also add an index. But here in the securities, you will see my hybrid strategies being updated. So as you remember, this is the hybrid strategy which I have added. All I have to do is just click on it, and you can see it has been added into the system. This is the strategy I have. Now, when I run the risk versus return, you can see one of my hybrid strategy is here with a risk of 8%, return of 12.83%. So it gives me a proper sets of tools to analyze any particular non-standard asset classes in the system. And one important thing here is that because we are capturing daily data sets, their NGEN has a way, because NGEN actually captures even monthly and a weekly, monthly, or even a yearly data sets. So what you have to do is, if you're talking about yearly data sets, so I've made a certain data set for an example. Let's say you have a data set of 1 year, right? Every single year, your sum of the price series is increasing, by certain percentages, or, just a random price series increase. So if I plot this, right, you will have a step kind of a plot, right? Now what you have to do is you just have to copy this, just a second, and paste it into the system. Now the implementation for this can be anything from real estate, or maybe FDs, or any other asset classes where you do not have data sets of daily, right? So you can easily do a monthly data set or a yearly data set. So this is a yearly data set which I've shown you. And what I would do is, if I do the yearly data sets, I have to just copy this, paste it into the system, and validate the input. You will see certain kind of a step kind of a system, but you can see the data points is 3132. Now, clearly the data point was never 3.32 in our Excel. So what the machine has done is it has broken into the points, as in, it has been like a daily data set. Now, what you have to do is you just have to save this into the system. So I'm just saving it as a test data set. So it's a random test we are doing. Okay, just a second, right? And you just click any other asset class, you validate the input, you save it. Once you save it, you can easily see it has been added into the system in the others tab. So this is also very important to keep in mind, that what kind of asset classes you are saving. So it gives you an ability to have multiple sets of folders when you are saving any data set. So here you can see in the others, this test random, when you run it, you can see a kind of like a step-based system, but you can easily see the return set. Now the return set is 8 percentage, right? So and efficiently I have taken as an 8% as a growth of this particular set of asset. So you can easily do a lots of analysis for any particular assets added into the system. Now the one thing is that rolling analysis will be a bit tough for this, because it's a yearly data set. But a very good way to check is just the performance against the benchmark. So what is my cumulative return? It's lesser than the benchmark. Now, if I consider this, maybe like, let's say a CCIL bond, right? So how would I fare against CCIL bond with an 8%? So yes, we are still not beating CCIL bond. So you can efficiently do that for any particular asset you added into the system. So this can solve a lot of problems if you have frequency of data sets, not in a daily format, maybe in a monthly format or even a yearly format. So that is how you can do that and add them into the system. And if you download this price series, you will see altogether a very different prices, because the machine has broken this entire 13 points price series into multiple data points, like 3000 something. So that is how this works out for any particular security. And the last point is, to delete any security, all you have to do is delete it, because there are too much clutters. So you might not want to have, because this is a static domain, this custom security. Once you add it, it is added till that particular date. It is not automated, because this is a manual entry you're doing from your side. That is why if you want to delete some of the securities, you can easily do that just by clicking on them. And the favorites tab is available as well. So that's how this entire thing works out for the custom securities. altogether. So that is all for the today's session. We may start up with our question and answers. So anybody, if you have any questions, we can start with the questions. So are there any questions? So there was a question on the direct message. The gold data is not available on the website.
This is Arunab. So we don't currently have commodity prices on the platform. So you unfortunately will have to download it from outside and then put it in here. We are, however, looking for it. So as soon as it's available, we will most likely add it in the market section somewhere. So currently it's not available, but we are working on it. If there's anyone else, please do ask your question now, so we can address them.
Yeah, Pramod here. I have one more question, if I can unmute myself and say.
Yes.
When we are looking at the Sharpe ratio and other ratios, is it the data captured from the fact sheets or is it calculated in the backend?
So everything that you see here is calculated from the back end, and we can actually tell you exactly there are very, very few things that are not calculated. Very simply, we can actually just show you a fund. We may just load one of these two funds, just click on or just anything here. So here, so basically on the top, when you see all these data points, not in the tabs, but on the top, these are all coming from the fact sheet through the data provider to us. YTM, we don't calculate that. PEPB, we don't calculate that. That comes from directly from the provider. And then once you look below, in any of the tab, everything here is calculated. So Sharpe ratio, Sortino bar, everything is us. Volatility, and lots of times you will find that they are not, they're different from the fact sheet. Most of the cases, the reason is that lots of times the fact sheets use monthly data points, and which is not advisable, especially for things like standard deviation. Even when you're looking at Sharpe ratio, the denominator to Sharpe ratio is standard deviation, which sometimes is using monthly data, which is not a good indicator of risk at all. It's describing the entire year in 12 data points. So all of what you see here is based out of daily returns, and everything is calculated by us.
And even the risk-free rate you assume for the ratios would be standalone.
10-year bonded. So let's just quickly go to the market section and show them. So where is it? Right at the top there is.
Okay.
That's what we use.
Okay. And whenever we choose a lesser tenure, like let us say the starting date, accordingly the Sharpe ratio will also be calculated for that particular tenure only.
Yes, so we obviously we look at the time period, basically when you change the start date, that one, if you change it, let's say do 1 year ago, 2 years ago, something like that, everything will change. You can see it. Everything changes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure.
And just out of the context, if I need to get the gold data, so what would be the one? Because if I look at the mutual fund data, then I think there is a costing that would be involved into it, right? I mean, the expense ratio and all. Should I look at the gold prices, like, from the websites, or what would you recommend generally?
So you can check it on investing.com. That's not a bad website. But downloading is not really possible there. I mean, you can check history and stuff, but downloading data, you're right, it becomes an issue. We are trying to solve it. I think we are almost there. So once we are, then we will add it. As you know, by the way, in the market section, for example, let's say you want to download currency price, let's say dollar INR. All you have to do, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you just click on dollar INR. And okay, it's in line because we haven't rebased it. If we just rebase it, so you can see we got Nifty and dollar INR in the same chart. Now you just click on the CSV button and you have a neatly formatted historical data for whatever you put on the chart, right?
Okay.
And that's how so in the same way, once we get gold, silver, and maybe some other commodities, you'll be able to just click and add them to the chart just for comparison, but also you'll be able to download by just adding to the chart and then clicking the download button.
Great. Thanks, Sonal.
Sure. Okay, if there are no other questions, Umair, I think we can go ahead and finish for today.
Sure. So I hope there are no other questions. If you have any questions, you can ask us in the next webinar. Tentatively Friday 4 o'clock we will be having. So
Arnab, I have a question, if I can, last minute,
Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah. See, when we look at a risk-free, typically, what I have read or come across is they take a 91-day treasury bill because that will have even the close to zero interest rate risk because it is going to have less than 90 days maturity. But when we are assuming a 10-year bond, it is going to be a long-term bond, which will be more sensitive to the interest rate fluctuations.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So don't you think it is, it may not, I mean, what is your opinion on that? Like,
sir, again, it's, I mean, technically, I think you're right. Maybe we should actually use the 91 day because the risk-free rate is supposed to just give you a simple idea of if I did nothing, what am I going to make? Maybe the 10-year bond rate is not the ideal one. I mean, that seems to be the one that everybody is using, which is why we picked that one because to kind of to make sure. Otherwise, if we change that, you get annoyed because most fact sheets that we've seen are using the 10-year bond rate. But having said that, I think it makes more sense to use something even less riskier. I mean, the risk-free rate effectively is supposed to be virtually risk-free.
Yeah, 91-day table or something where even the interest rate fluctuations would not be showing up, right?
Yes, exactly.
So because a 10-year bond incidentally has the interest rate risk attached to that.
Yes, that's right. So we could potentially look at a way of maybe giving an option to change the risk-free rate. Have a default and an option.
Thanks, Arnab. Thanks.
So any other questions? Okay, so it seems there are no other questions, so we should wrap this session up. So we will meet again next Friday, 4 o'clock tentatively. And then we would, have another topic altogether for everybody of you. So thank you so much, everyone.
So 1 minute, sir. Yeah. So regarding in tools, actually, see, we have SIPs, actually verifying the SIPs and all. So in that we have analyze of mutual fund and separately index. Actually, can we combine both these in one chart so that we can see in a single chart we can see actually. So it's a suggestion for you actually whether we can do that data. So here we see the funds investment value separately and the index can be analyzed separately. Can we add one more column so that we can check both of these in same table like that? Is there any possibility in future?
So do you want to compare like a lump sum versus a SIP?
No, SIP alone. SIP in index, SIP in Nifty index 50 and some fund like HDFC Flexi Cap.
So you want to compare multiple SIPs together?
Multiple?
You want to compare multiple SIPs together?
No. So I want to compare the index with passive fund like So there is a craze like a passive fund. So comparing for a long term for passive fund and active fund.
So we can do that, not in this chart form. So Umair, if you just go to the compare section, add one fund and add one index. So you can add any mutual fund here. And then you can add
possible actually, but what I'm asking in SIP.
Yeah, SIP. So there is a monthly SIP thing here. You can add as many funds and indices you want, and side by side you can see which would have had. So he just added more indices here, and whatever you want you can add here, and then you can go to the monthly SIP tab, and basically you'll see.
See that. Yeah, that shows a lump sum comparison actually.
So this is a SIP. It's running a 5,000 rupee SIP monthly.
Yeah. So it's not a detailed comparison. No, in tool section we have detailed comparison actually.
Yes.
So if you can add another column like invested amount and fund value, another column for Nifty 50, so that we can see in one table itself actually.
Understand. Okay, got it. So we can look into that. Fine. So add basically one more comparison thing in the details. Okay. Sure.
Yes. Particular time. So how was if you start in a particular time and in a downtrend, how which was performed well, we can see like that in a particular time frame. Also, we can see that SIP.
Understand. Perfect. We will look into that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions before we wrap the session up? Okay, so it seems like there aren't any questions. So if you have any questions, you can actually ask these questions in the next webinar as well. We will be available. We will, sort out all your queries. And also you can write us on support. So I'm just writing the mail here, support@engineresearch.com, which we actively manage. So you can just write us here and, get your queries solved. So thank you so much, everyone. And have a nice weekend ahead. Thank you.